Welcome to another episode of Bad Hasbara, the world's most moral podcast. I am your host, Matt Lieb, and I am so excited for y'all to be here with me talking about some Israeli propaganda. Just a quick shout out, first and foremost, to our most moral producer, Adam Levin. He's on the ones and twos, whatever those are, whatever that has ever meant. Don't know. Think it has something to do with producing music. Don't know what it means, but he's out here and he's doing a great job. So shout out to him. Also shout out to everyone who has joined the Patreon, patreon.com/badhasbara. Y'all are amazing. You have been able to support this podcast. And you have been able to make this something worth doing for me, which is a big deal because I like doing it. I have fun. Well, fun is relative. I enjoy doing it, or at least it's good for my mental health to do it. It might also be bad. I don't know why I do it. I do it because I need to do it, and the fact that I can do it and it doesn't just make my life harder is beautiful. So thank you for everyone, and for all of you who don't pay for it. It's all good. Thank you for just tuning in and watching it. And thank you for subscribing on all of the podcast apps. You can subscribe on Spotify. You can subscribe on Apple Podcast Store, Pocket Casts, all those ones. So please subscribe, and you can continue to watch it. That's fine too. But subscribe as well. That helps. Okay, today it's just me. Not the whole episode. I have a guest, but Daniel is in France. And he is un peu tired because it is 11 p.m. out there right now as the time that we're recording this. So he is going to dormir. I don't really know. I don't know that much French, but he's gonna go sleep skis. He's going to dormez-vous like Farajaka. This is at some point this just feels anti-French. But that's okay. So I will be your most moral host, just me. And we have a wonderful guest, a fantastic guest. Now, you have seen this guest on such wonderful programs as The Bituation Room with Francesca Fiorentini. You have seen him on worse shows like Piers Morgan. You have also seen him or heard him on his brand new podcast, the Muslim and a Jew Walk Into a podcast. Ladies and gentlemen and everyone else, welcome to the pod, Wajahat Ali. What's up, bro?
Shalom alaikum. I love me some bad Jews. And
hell yeah.
The less better halves of Francesco. Well done.
How dare you? I am the less better half. I mean,
we both married up. We know it. We're grateful.
Yeah, we know. Yeah, this is the thing. Like, if you're gonna marry someone, you got to make sure that they're better than you in every single way. And Francesca is all of those things. If you like me because I'm funny, she's funnier. If you like me because I'm pretty, she's prettier. If you like me because I'm Jewish, well, she's not more Jewish, but you know what I mean.
You win on the Jew tip. You win.
I mean, I don't know. She is half Italian and half Chinese, which is functionally Jewish. And so I feel like she's basically that. So even in that sense, she wins. She's great.
What do you all do on Christmas? Because half of her and all of you are like, eh.
No, only half of me is like, eh. The other half of me loves Christmas. So because I'm only half Jewish, I
did not know that.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I feel like being half Jewish or just being Jewish means you actually secretly love Christmas, but you don't get to. Whereas like in my family, we got to celebrate it. So it's almost like I'm living every Jewish person's dream of celebrating.
Bro, you're like Blade. You're like the Daywalker. You have all of our strengths and none of our weaknesses. Because we never had Christmas trees. We're like, it'd be so much fun. And my mom, like at the age of 5, is like, this is all crap. This is bullshit.
This is what I'm saying. I feel like that is exactly like everyone who doesn't come from a family that celebrates Christmas because of another religion or another culture, they're all just like, damn, man, seems like Christmas kind of rules. And you know what? It does. It's
Thank
pretty
you.
great.
I'm glad. Another thing, my kids are like, we both also are parents of young children, and in your child will be lucky, um, because in addition to white skin with some Asianness,
Hmm.
which is very exotic,
Yeah,
they will
sure.
also have Christmas trees. And my
100%.
children have asked me, how come we don't have Christmas trees? And I feel like I'm a bad Muslim parent. I'm like,
Yeah.
maybe I should give them the tree, because I'll be honest,
Yeah.
it seemed fun. All you
It
kids who
is
had the
fun.
trees and the presents, it seemed fun.
It's great. Here's the thing. I don't know Christmas to be a religious holiday. It was actually later in life when I went over to a Catholic girlfriend's parents' house for Christmas one year, and I saw like a bunch of Jesus shit that I was like, whoa, 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 what's with all this Jesus crap around Christmas? It was very weird to me. For me, I feel like it's this beautiful secular holiday about commerce and capitalism. You
Yes, it's
know,
very
it's
American.
a yeah, it's a one time a year where you can just throw Marxist praxis to the side and say, hey, today we're going to indulge in some just spending of money for the sake of buying products that, were exploiting surplus labor. You know what I
And
mean?
Jesus becomes a good mascot for capitalism. And I have to say, I
Mm-hmm.
just thought about it right now. Like, you actually have been invested in your whole life in interfaith,
That's
dating
right.
Christian girls, and you married one. So anyone who
100%.
accuses you of being a hater, I'm like,
Yeah.
this man did
If,
it.
yes, yes. I am out here a living coexist bumper sticker. You know,
Yeah,
like
I don't
it
put the
just.
I live it. I don't need a
That's
bumper
right.
sticker.
I don't need a. I am that sticker. It's
Yeah.
me.
Look at my living, breathing child.
Yeah, a Christian, a Jew, together at a an Arab Islamic company like AJ Plus. We're out here
Paid by Qatar.
paid by Qatar, out here just being that coexist sticker, bro. You
B-
can't tell me I don't care about peace. I'm all
Paying
about
for
it.
our Chinese food on Christmas. What?
That's right, 100%. Um, but Waj, thank you for coming on to Bad Hasbara. I've been so much looking forward to having you on this podcast because I've been following you for a long time, and like with any guest I have on the show, usually one of the big reasons that I want to have you on is because I've noticed in the last 8 months you put yourself out there as someone who is going to go against the grain of the giant imperial hegemon and decide to speak about Palestinian human rights and go on, mainstream news programs and be the person who has to argue with some of the Israeli government's biggest psychopaths. So I'm excited to have you on to talk about some of your experiences, but I'd love to just get a background on you and where you come from and where you come from in terms of this issue.
Yeah, no, it's. I have a very complex issue, and I'm like pleasantly surprised you invited me. But I hope you don't get too many trolls. You might, and I'll go
Oh,
into
that's
that in
fine.
a second. And if they do, just throw me under the bus.
Yeah,
Matt
yeah,
and
yeah,
Francesca
yeah.
are good people.
Yeah.
I grew up in the Bay Area. You're in the Bay Area. I
Hmm.
left the Bay a couple of years ago because, like you, I married up, and my wife's
Hmm.
actually a doctor, and
Oh,
she has a
dude.
job and
Oh.
like health insurance. So I moved to the East Coast for my wife, but I was born and raised in a multiracial, diverse Bay Area where I went to an all boys Jesuit Catholic high school. I am
Mm,
Muslim, folks.
mm,
And that carpool where I went to that all boys Jesuit Catholic high school was me, Wajahat Ali, the son of Pakistani Muslim immigrants, Alan
mm,
Loggins, the son of Nigerian Christian immigrants, Brian Rothbach, the son of practicing conservative Jews, and
mhm.
Gaurav Singh, the practicing Hindu son of Indian immigrants.
Wow.
And, first and foremost, we have to dispel this myth that, Muslims and Jews,
Yeah,
we were born hating each other,
that's
like the
right.
Jewish doctor slapped my butt and I'm like, I'll get you back.
Yeah, right.
Like
Exactly.
my parents, and I know every family's different, but this is important for people who don't know, right? Like my dad never sat me down. Beta, you are Muslim. You must hate the Jews, right? In fact, our biggest fights, I joke about this, but this is true. Our biggest fights in that carpool were about which Star Trek was the best Star Trek series. I always lean towards Next Generation.
Yeah.
I think Brian the Jew went for the Deep Space Nine. I respect it in my older age. We played video games, and we were dorks who went to an all-boys Jesuit Catholic high school who couldn't talk to girls, right?
Right.
The friction point, I would say then and now, has always been Israel-Palestine, specifically Israel's occupation of Palestinians.
Right.
And if I may, for some of your audience members who don't know but are afraid to ask, it's a good question. You're brown. I see a lot of brown people, like South Asians, and I see also Indonesians, like care about Palestine. Like, you're not Arab. Why do you care? Which I think is a good question.
Yeah, I mean,
so
it's a good question if you're really coming at it with patience.
Yeah. So if you take away the whole human rights thing, okay,
right.
If you take away the whole occupation thing, but like people are like, why Palestine? Why do you care as more sometimes than even Arabs, right? You'll see South Asians, right? What's the, if any, Muslim angle, right? And I think this is important. People don't know what Jerusalem means to Muslims, right? For Muslims, for those who don't know, we pray 5 times a day, a lot of prayers. We face the Qibla, the direction of prayer is Saudi Arabia, modern day Saudi Arabia, and it's that black cube, Mecca. But the first direction of prayer for Muslims was actually Al-Aqsa, the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem. People don't know that. Number 2, there's something called the night journey the Prophet Muhammad took, where he went from Saudi Arabia to what Muslims refer to as Haram al-Sharif, which Jews refer to the Temple Mount, the Dome of the Rock, that beautiful dome. From there, he ascended to the heavens, right? A very powerful journey, and it's said in Islam that he then led the prophets in prayer, right? The third reason I would say is that historical connection to Jerusalem. Muslims believe in Jesus as a prophet. And we had control, if you will, of Jerusalem, and there was the Crusades, and Salah ad-Din then retook control. But, and this is really important, this story still permeates in a beautiful way. Salah ad-Din, when he took back Jerusalem, he made it as a sanctuary for the 3 religions, the Abrahamic faiths, Jews, Muslims, and Christians. And even though it wasn't perfect, that is a big deal. When we say Jews are cousins, we really mean that, like our monotheistic cousins. And the fourth reason is a majority of Palestinians, not all, are Muslim. And like the world, we have witnessed for the past 70 plus years the painful occupation and humiliation of our quote unquote Muslim brethren, right? You combine all of that. And then the fifth one I'll say is, as Americans, you hear this sometimes with bad faith people, Matt, and I'm sure you get this. Why do you all care about Palestine? Why not Syria? Why not the Rohingya? Why not the Uyghurs? We should, and we do. The reason is, when it comes to Israel, we're told it is the only democracy in the Middle East.
Right.
We are told it is the most moral army. We know our money goes to pay for that occupation.
Right.
So it's very hard to change Assad's mind, folks. Okay. MBS is not a Democrat. Yeah, we've tried. He doesn't listen. Saudi Arabia, not a democracy. But we feel in America, maybe, just maybe, we can use whatever influence that we have to push the levers to have the superpower called America not give the keys to the drunken driver that is Israel Netanyahu. Sorry for that TED talk, but I hope that was useful.
No, that was great. I agree completely. I think it's like I said, it's, if you have the patience to answer a question like why do you care, I think it's great to do so, because there are some people who do ask that in good faith. And I remember like being one of those people. I remember being someone who was always a little bit suspicious of why people cared so much about it. It's like, yeah, no, I agree with you, there's a lot wrong, but like, why do you care? And I found it to be something that was like it was a way for me to, without saying it, kind of like stoke this inner paranoia I had about like anti-Semitism. It must be for an anti-Semitic reason that you even care about this. And I think that, over time, as I got to know more and more people who were Jews in Palestine solidarity movement spaces, who cared about it, and realized that I was giving them, I don't know, I was like allowing them to say all of the things that all of the critiques without questioning it, because I wasn't worried that they just hated Jews. And then I was like, this is kind of unfair of me to not like extend the same faith towards other people who, like, even if you have nothing to do with it, even if you're from somewhere where, you're not from a country that like supports Israel, you're not from any of the three Abrahamic. Is it Abrahamic? I'm going to say Abrahamic.
Yeah, you can say it.
Yeah,
Abrahamic. Half of you can say it.
Yes, Abrahamic religions, or even if you have no connection to the issue, it's human rights are human rights. So it's like the idea that like you shouldn't care about this for XYZ. I realized was kind of just my way of being like, well, this way also I cannot care about this. I need people.
You can deflect it.
I can deflect it. I can kick this can down the road. I can say it doesn't have anything to do with me. When, the idea that the suffering of humans, at the expense of my own tax dollars, would have nothing to do with me is ridiculous on its face. But you bring up,
but that was a Hasbara tactic, though. I mean, speaking about
100%,
show,
still is.
It's like, well, you're not Arab, so why do you care? Or this, you're not Muslim, why do you care?
Right.
And that type of lazy thinking really penetrated, I think, American discourse, where I'm sure you kind of hear it a little less now, Matt, but like because we're a little bit older. But
sure.
You heard some people say, "Oh, those guys will always hate each other," and they kind of use Arab and Muslim interchangeably, since they'll always hate each other from the beginning of time. There's no solutions. Let's go buy more shit.
Yeah, and like I think I've seen that tactic used a lot of the times. It's almost like an anti-black tactic in America, because you see that being said a lot by people who are simultaneously posting a video of a black pro-Palestine activist on a campus and going like, why does this person care? It has nothing to do with them. It's like it's a way to without saying it, be like, this is an A-B conversation. Can you see your way out of it? You know what I mean? Like it's a way of trying to make people feel foolish for giving a shit, when it is, I think, well within anyone's right to look at something and go like, this is bad, especially like when you see something that is apartheid. And I can't speak as obviously a black American or a black person in the world, but like if you see apartheid going on, you go like, oh, that reminds me of apartheid. That apartheid looks like apartheid. And if you're a Muslim and or an Arab, and you see what is clearly this ethnic cleansing going on, like, how can you not expect them to, like, the expectation that you would somehow be like, oh, I don't care about that stuff is a ridiculous expectation, in my opinion.
Well, also, and it connects to us, because you might be wondering, well, okay, you're American, you're a son of Pakistani immigrants, you're not Arab, you're not Palestinian, you don't have family there. Well, how does it affect you? And in this journey, I remember I was at UC Berkeley, and I was part of the Muslim Student Association. I was elected to the board of the Muslim Student Association. The year was 2001. My timing was exquisite.
Yeah, it's a great year.
Thank you. Perfect timing. I'm about to turn 21, and I can tell you, because it coincided with the failed war on terror and also the Second Intifada, it didn't matter. This is the thing that's important. It doesn't matter. They lump us all together. Right. It didn't matter that I was, not Palestinian. If you advocate for Palestinian rights in some way, if you are in some way, shape, or form critical of Israel, and you just happen to be brown-skinned and Muslim, even now you see it. Like Ali Velshi, Mehdi Hassan, what do they get called? Hamas. What do I get called? Hamas. Judge Manji, Pakistani-American, highly qualified judge who would have been the first Muslim judge on the appellate court nominated by Biden. His nomination is most likely sunk, Matt. Why?
Yeah.
Because Senator Tom Khan, along with some bad Hasbara, have smeared him as a result of what's happening in the Gaza war. And then two Democratic senators from Nevada have jumped on, even though the Jewish groups, the Zionist Jewish groups, have given him like an A rating. Doesn't matter. So that's where I realized, even AJC and ADF, they're like, no, this one's good. They're like, no, it doesn't matter. So that's where Ilhan Omar, not Arab, doesn't matter. They call her Hamas, right? Scott Jennings said on CNN. So that's where we kind of learned early on at that time that if you especially are Muslim and brown skinned and Arab, they can easily, as dismiss you as terrorist, Hamas, Hezbollah, ISIS,
and anti-Semitic by default,
and anti-Semitic by default. It didn't matter.
You see it all the time, and I think that's like one of the things that pisses me off the most is this, like, how easy it is to smear someone who is Arab, or just basically anyone who is not Jewish and a person of color is so easily smeared. It is just accepted that they are anti-Semitic if one of these like pro-Israel organizations or one of these like troll accounts like stopantisemitism.org calls them anti-Semitic. People just go, yeah, that makes sense to me. It's just this, this type of racism that exists in which you are going to basically take an entire people and say that, well, their morals by default are worse than mine. So the fact that they would be anti-Semitic makes sense to me. Of course they're Nazis. Of course they hate Jews. Oh, people talk about whenever there's a black Palestinian solidarity activist, people will bring up Farrakhan, for no fucking reason. It's just this automatic assumption that there are these communities of people of color who just like the baseline is hatred of Jews. And I always find that really hilarious because it is clearly coming from people who did not grow up around a lot of people of color. I'll tell you, someone who is born and raised in Los Angeles, they don't know you're Jewish. They just think you're some white guy. I like this idea of the fear of people who are not identifiably Jewish. Like, unless you are someone who is a Hasidic Jew and you are wearing what are people would consider stereotypically Jewish clothing,
or a kippah, right?
Yeah, even that. But it's like there's a lot of expectation that people have that people just can tell when someone is Jewish based on nothing but like physiognomy, which is like this weird kind of race science that we superimpose onto other people. Like, oh, certainly they're looking at my nose size and wondering if I am Jew. Like that kind of shit, like, it drives me crazy because I'm just like, you're living in this fantasy world in which there are people in big cities, like people of color just going around trying to tell who's a Jew and who's not a Jew. It's absurd. It's not the case for the vast majority of people. Now, I can't speak to anything but my own experience. There are people obviously in, living, born and raised in New York who might have a different experience, or born and raised in a small white town and being the only Jewish person. Sure, maybe there are fucking crypto Nazis out there who are trying to figure out who the Jew is. But I just feel like we do this thing where we just automatically assume, or at least Zionists count on people automatically assuming that people of color, especially Arabs and especially Muslims, are just automatically anti-Semitic. They
and
must
also,
be.
I'm glad you mentioned black people, because that was a smear also, Louis Farrakhan. And, speaking about bad Hasbara, which used to be successful Hasbara, still bad, and has evolved and is a bit more dangerous. 2 points to that. It used to be if you were brown-skinned or black, Arab or Muslim, kind of lumped us all together, and then you would have to play the condemn-a-thon game. You have to condemn Hamas, you have to condemn Farrakhan. I still do. But now it's evolved into something which, I talked to some Jewish friends of mine who I think they would probably consider themselves Zionist or pro-Israel, but hate the war, or progressive, yada. I said, listen, I've seen a new tactic that some of these groups have taken to silence criticism, and you are calling Jews capo, you're calling Jews un-Jew, you are excommunicating and takfiring Jews who are taking part in this protest, who are critical of this war. As a Muslim, as a person who's seen where excommunication has led to terrible things and takfirism has led to terrible things, knowing the numbers, there's only 16 million of you. This is not good for the Jews. Please don't do
100%.
this. Yeah. Please do not takfir and excommunicate Jews who are critical of this war and call them un-Jews or Hamas Jews. This will not end well for you. But you could tell, because people have lost their minds, that now the splintering is, well, we don't want you, Matt Lieb. And JVP, whether you agree with them or not, we don't want you. And those Jews who are saying not our name, we don't want you. You go join Hamas. You go join the rest of them. I'm like, there's 16 million of you. There's a rise of white supremacy. There's a rise of anti-Semitism. As a Muslim looking on the outside, please don't do this.
Right. It's completely like absurd and dangerous, and you know, it kind of leads me to the same conclusion that a lot of like Israeli Hasbara has led me, is when it comes to the general safety of Jews not in Israel. The idea seems to be, you know, we can roll the dice with them. We can do things like paint all Jews with a broad brush and say that we're all pro this, you know, genocide going on, you know, which, listen, if you're living in the Jewish state, you know, with nuclear weapons and whatnot, maybe, you know, you feel confident, you feel cocky about, you know, doing this. But if you are a Jew anywhere else in the world in which you are a, you know, minority, a vast minority, a small minority, you know, that is not good for us when you are saying, oh yeah, no, we are all, you know, a monolith and we all agree with this. And it seems to be something where they don't care, and they don't even care about like, like unjewing people or excommunicating them or calling them traitors. You know, it's like,
or equating all Jews with Israel and Israel's actions. This is not good.
Which is anti-Semitic by any definition, including their own. And it's why it's like, you know, I mean, the thing about this podcast is, you know, we end up talking about a lot of these points over and over again, but I will reiterate, it is fucking insane that in one breath they can say equating all Jews with Israel is anti-Semitic, which is correct, and then say also anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. It's just like, you're fucking crazy. You are doing anti-Semitism, because by definition, anti-Semitism is being anti-Jewish, right? If we're talking about the definition of it. And to say that the criticism of Israel is anti-Jewish is then conflating Jews and Israel. And that is anti-Semitic by your very own definition. So we just have to live with this constant gaslighting. And, you know, I was like, hey, someone should start a podcast about it.
But you know what? You know, we were talking this right before you hit record. We're at that certain age where this type of Hasbara and this type of talking points were used to neuter and disarm any good faith critics of Israel, right? Like my for better and for worse, for some of your viewers, they know my history. Like, I have put myself out there for better and for worse. Interfaith engagement, this and that. I've taken the hits. A lot of people dislike me, but I've done my best to speak out on all my public platforms about the rise of anti-Semitism, the rise of Islamophobia, anti-Black racism, trying to warn people like a brown Cassandra about Trumpism, about the rise of white supremacy, about the intersection of these hate groups. I said he won't leave. I said the Republican Party would be corrupted. I said by 2024, white nationalist talking points would go mainstream. All the people who get paid to be wrong about everything laughed and said, ha, 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 you're wrong. Right. And at the beginning of this war, that has gone on for 8 months now, has claimed at least 36,000, the number is going to be higher, Palestinian lives, where more children, Palestinian children, have been killed by Israel. In the past 8 months, more kids have been killed than in any other war zone of the past 2 years combined, folks.
Yeah.
And you sit there and I say, studying this, working on this issue, I can tell you that the two groups who will be the most effed, Jews, Arabs, and Muslims. Voila, right. Spike in anti-Semitism, spike in Islamophobia and anti-Arab bigotry, both here and Europe.
That's
and
right.
Bad faith actors, white supremacists are playing a divide and conquer here. And then you got, pro-Israel Jews who are like, you know who I want to unite with? I won't unite with Waj or Matt, even though we might disagree on this issue. I will unite with Mike Johnson.
Right.
And
exactly.
white Christian nationalists who openly hate Jews. I will unite with Donald Trump, who dined with Nick Fuentes. This is how Jews will be safe.
Yes, exactly. It's this idea that, like, I mean, it just shows where people's like priorities are in terms of Jewish safety. It's like this part of the cult-like hold that Zionism seems to have on people is that they are just utterly convinced that the safety of Jews is tied inherently to the existence and perpetuation of the Zionist project and Israel. And that means supporting that state no matter what they do, because at the end of the day, to not support it is to wish for the ethnic cleansing of Jews from that area, which is which
No,
is
you're right. That's what they've told me. I mean, you're not exaggerating. When you go to Israel and talk to some folks, they said that I won't mention his name, but a writer said Israel is the Jews' last gamble,
right.
And we've put all our eggs in Israel, and if Israel falls, over.
Yeah, right. And which is completely like that is. I'm sorry, but that's death cult thinking. The idea that Jews' only hope for survival is upholding an apartheid state. Or worse, a state that is going to genocide and ethnically cleanse the 5 million Arabs in the West Bank and Gaza. Like that's our only hope. And for that to be a sentence that a liberal person would want to say out loud, like you need to have this kind of cult-like thinking of like, well, it's either that or we're all done, all Jews of the world. That's the only way you can make it morally make sense to you, and I watch people play that game and I'm just like, I don't know, man. I think about like fucking Jim Jones and I'm just like, at the point at which the guy with the gun is saying you have to drink the Kool-Aid, don't you get a little suspicious that maybe you're not all going on a trip to heaven together? You know what I mean? Like at the point at which you're like being threatened to believe something that is going to actively hurt you, I'd start questioning stuff. I'd start going like, why do I have to die? Or like, why do I have to drink the Kool-Aid? Why do I have to believe in, the by any means destruction of 5 million Arabs? Like, it seems to me like you desperately want me to believe this, and I'm going to start being cynical.
You touched upon it. I think you touched upon it. Having engaged with these folks, talked with these folks, reported on it. It's a zero-sum mindset that comes not just from trauma, but a large part of it is trauma. And anti-Semitism exists, and Europe helped facilitate it, and Jews have been in a diaspora, and they're like, now we have Israel. And for those who have somewhat of a religious bent on it, like, if God didn't want us to return, these miracles would not have happened. 48 would not have happened. 67 would not have happened. This means that God is favoring us, or else why would this happen? And we got it back. And look what's happening in Europe, and look what's happening in America. And there's Hezbollah, and there's Hamas. And if we don't have this, it's over for us. So we have to keep this. All or nothing. We can't give an inch. We can't give an inch of land, an inch of hummus, an inch of language, an inch of history, because they'll come in and take everything. We've already given too much. It's us versus them. And that mindset has produced a type of, I'll say this, I said this on Piers Morgan, with the current Israeli government, I'm talking about the government, a type of general psychopathy where you rationalize apartheid, you rationalize ethnic cleansing, you rationalize genocidal activities, and then I try to be a pragmatist. I said, let's play this out. Okay, let's suppose Ben Gvir, I'm sure your listeners know who Ben Gvir is, National Security Minister, a man who was convicted by his own government for inciting violence, folks. National Security Minister of Israel. A Smotrich, by his own words, a Jewish fascist. His words, not mine. Let's say, okay, you get to quote unquote resettle the land. You kick out magically the Palestinians, which means ethnic cleansing.
Yes.
Kick them out to Egypt. You kick them out to Lebanon, Jordan. Okay, they're all Arabs. The Arabs will take them back. I'm using their language.
Yes.
Now they have magically disappeared through force and violence, ethnic cleansing. You have settled Gaza. You're going to continue expanding the settlements in the West Bank. There's no excuse for it because you say Hamas, Hamas, Hamas. Hamas doesn't control the West Bank, but we know you want the land. You got it. Yeah. River to the sea. You have created settlements. Tell me, Matt, and this is me saying this as a humanist who wants safety for all people.
Yeah.
Are Jews and Israelis safer?
Yeah, no, they are not. And it's because their ideology, to me, the ideology is unsustainable in terms of, just human, general consensus of human morality. Because if the ideology relies on the idea that we are, Jews are under existential threat and therefore must commit these heinous atrocities, I'll tell you, the rest of the world does not believe that.
That's what I'm saying.
The rest of the world looks at that and goes like, you guys seem like very much the bad guys here, and that does
Are
not.
Are we the baddies? Yes.
Yeah.
Right
yes.
now, yes.
Everyone. The general consensus is that Israelis are the baddies, and if this continues on, more and more people are they're just going to say Jews are the baddies, and that is something that I've seen happen. I'd never deny the ignorant anti-Semitism that comes out of people who are just traumatized by seeing this shit over and over again and being told that they're not only supposed to, ignore it, but they're supposed to like it. And so I look at this, I go, guys, this is bad for the Jews because there is no end. Because what happens after the ethnic cleansing of Gaza? After the ethnic cleansing of Gaza, what do you have? You have the West Bank, the continued settlements there, eventual ethnic cleansing of that, kicking
East
all
Jerusalem.
Those, and then Jerusalem, and then you have the Arab Israelis, the Palestinians within the 48 borders, and if the entire project hinges on a demographic majority being sustained of Jews, it must be, more Jews than Arabs. This is going to be a problem because of the fact that you are now looking at birth rates. You are now doing what white nationalists do in America, which is being weirdly racistly natalist, where all of a sudden you are making sure that Arabs don't have too many kids. You are restricting the freedom of movement for Arabs. You are restricting how many kids they can have, how many of their family members from other countries can visit. You start restricting immigration. You start restricting who can go on vacation. It turns into this authoritarian fascist state pretty quickly. Not to say it isn't now, but that is unsustainable. We cannot have that and have people just and not expect retribution one way or another from.
That's the case. I mean, it's escalation and retribution and consequences. And you're talking about costs. And I want to talk about the two costs. Mm-hmm. First, the security cost. Hezbollah is in Lebanon. So now you're going to attack Hezbollah? Okay. Suppose you destroy Hezbollah. Israel tried to destroy PLO in the early 80s in Lebanon. Laid to waste Lebanon. PLO got weakened. What came in its place? Hezbollah.
That's right.
What did they decide to bank on? Hamas. So as long as people are occupied, people resist that occupation. Now, what do you think they'll do after a genocide?
Yes.
And what do you think they'll do when people, bad faith actors, extremists, use religion to justify violence, and white supremacists use anti-Semitism to justify violence? Jews will be a target wherever they go, and Israel will be a target.
Yes.
So now you have ruined what little security you had by, quote unquote, redeeming the land. I'm using the language of settlers. Now, speak about the other cost that you and I think, care about. The moral cost, the religious cost. When you make I use this analogy in an Atlantic article. I said, my fear was settlers and the extremists that we've talked about have made the land into a golden calf. And I think that was a dagger in the heart for people who know, history. I said
100%.
And I said, I came to this conclusion. I tried to lay out my case where the redemption of the land will come at the cost of morality, ethics, humanity, human rights, and even Judaism.
Yeah. Yes.
You'll get the land, but at what cost? And of course, the crushing and humiliation of the Palestinian people. And I will say, most people go back to 67. But if the 48, why is it called the Nakba? Why do Palestinians call it the Great Catastrophe? Because the realization, Matt, and I'm now speaking to Jews who, you might have that affinity towards Israel, that majority do.
Yeah.
The realization of this dream, this nation state, you have to admit now, I think you have to concede, has come at the expense and shattering and humiliation of the Palestinian people.
Right.
And you have to reconcile that. And I think that lack of reconciliation, Matt, is what brings about these mental and moral gymnastics that some of our friends, I'm sure some of your family members, the rubber hits the road at the end of the day.
Right.
You can't ignore them. Your future is tied with them.
Yes, I know. And, as much as, as they will, so easily write you off as like, oh, well, you're a traitor or a self-hater or a fake Jew, whatnot. I look at them and I go like, guys, we do need each other. And so part of needing each other is, maybe like taking a step back for a second and realizing that the entity or the way of thought or ideology that is trying to separate and break up families sounds a lot like maybe the mental prison, maybe it's the cult. Like I've called it before, I've called it Ziontology because they share so many similar traits in terms of like cult-like behavior, both in the the way that they do split up families, and also in the way that they have really shiny PR, and they really love to make high quality, sexy videos to get people really into the idea that their ideology is good.
Sir, that is why they pay you the big money for that brilliant segue.
That's right.
Wasn't that beautiful? A Lawrence of Arabia segue there.
Oh, yeah, baby. Let me tell you, this is the 33rd episode of this podcast, and at this point, I'm a fucking professional. And we will get into some wonderful bad Hasbara, but first, let's take a quick commercial break, and then we will be right back. Okay, we're back. I am here with Wajahat Ali. How you doing, baby?
I am doing good, and the timing of this particular podcast is exquisite. And to do my part to stitch together your exquisite segue, that news dropped right at the perfect time of Hasbara, and I wish we could unpack why we think it's bad, because we're old enough, Matt, for the young bucks.
Yes.
That Israeli Hasbara used to be polished,
100%,
slick, hidden, and very effective.
Yes.
And that shit is not working right now.
100%. Yeah, it was one of the things that, I think for me really spurred me on to do this podcast, was because there was a time in which it was a lot harder to explain to people what Israel was about and what Zionism was really about. And the reason it was hard to explain to people is because they had such a good PR strategy of being like, they would take all your like Western liberal morality and show you 1,000 different examples of Israelis reflecting that those values. And so, and then they would play on your Islamophobia, and they'd be like, well, as there's not an Arab in the world who enjoys gay people. As Arabs hate women, and so it was like you were dealing with a lot of Sam Harris-ites who just have this like blanket Islamophobia, wrapped in sort of this intellectualized, racism, where you go like, I'm not making a judgment either way. I'm just saying that Arabs and Muslims are inherently
barbarians.
Yeah, exactly. You're inherently savages.
The Bill Maher, Sam Harris liberals.
Yes. And so there was a time in which like the contrast between like the PR and the reality wasn't so insanely apparent, so what changed, I think, is that recently, and I don't know what it is, but the Hasbara button in people's brain is broken. Like the way in which Israel, the Israeli government has just trotted out these paid Hasbarists, these like the deputy mayor of Jerusalem, or Elon Levy, R.I.P. I just crossed myself.
He didn't last long. He was, how many Scaramucci's did the Levy last?
Yeah, I mean, a few Scaramucci's, but only like 3,
But I think that's a really good example, because with Levy, right, I had this conversation with a few other friends that you might know, so I don't want to name them, get them in trouble, but we were like, this guy sucks. Like when we're like, yes. We were like, in all seriousness, we're like, yo, Israel, what happened, man? Like, you used to trot out slick dudes.
100%.
This guy sucks. I mean, this is your country's representative to Hasbara during a very unpopular war. Whoa.
Yeah, and you know, I think it's this. My only guess has been that they've been lying with impunity for so long that they created sort of like a bubble-like reality in which everyone kind of just naturally agrees with whatever crazy shit they're gonna say, and so it's like they haven't had a chance to train in a while. You know, they haven't had an honest Western media to hold them accountable for decades, so that when something like this happens, you know, they have to like sit there and say, you know, listen, of course we care about, you know, the deaths of children and whatnot, but you know, if Hamas is somewhere near there, sometimes it's okay to kill some children. And also, what if those children become terrorists? Like, you're just like, whoa, what the fuck did you just say?
Yeah, and they say just like that, thinking that they'll get no clapback, and no one's gonna, because they were never held accountable. On Morning Joe just sat there and nodded his head like, yes.
Yeah, and you know, you see it now more and more. You know, the I think ultimate example is always Piers Morgan, right? Because like Piers Morgan is someone who is like, I think, you know, internally, like his the inner workings of his brain are a mystery to me, but my assumption is that he would, if he had the chance, he would like have a cup of tea with Hitler. He would say, well, listen, I don't agree with you, but he wouldn't want people to cancel him. You know what I mean? He would be like, stop trying to cancel.
People always ask me this because I've gone on Pierce show several times when he's invited me. People always ask me after every appearance, we don't understand. Sometimes he berates the Palestinian gets. Other times he makes you condemn Hamas. Then, like, all of a sudden, when you're with this deputy mayor of Jerusalem, Fleur Hassan Nahum, we can talk about her in a second. That was a couple of days ago. All of a sudden, he grills her. And I always tell people, Piers Morgan believes in Piers Morgan.
That's right.
If you understand that, you will understand what he's done in the past 8 months. And to his credit, he jumped on the bandwagon and realized there was an audience that wanted to hear a Palestinian perspective. And he goes, it's not going to happen in corporate media. I'll invite both. Sometimes they'll crap on me and shit on me and I'll take it. Sometimes I'll shit on them. But hey, look at the ratings. Look at the clicks. So that's Piers Morgan, folks.
That's exactly what I've been told by multiple people about him. It's just, in general, he is someone who likes to, you know, whatever gets the most clicks, he will shake the anthill and make everyone fight. That's his shit. He's, you know, he's a shill. He's just, at the end of the day, what he wants is the views. But the fact that you are seeing now more and more people realizing, at the very least, that the Israeli PR department is insulting their intelligence to their face. Like, for people who have egos, like Piers Morgan, they are like, well, no, that's a bridge too far. You have to, at the very least, give me a convincing argument. It's been, you know, interesting to watch.
It goes to what my theory on this. I'm reading Dune for the first time. I know I'm a bad nerd, but I'm like 450 pages in, and there's a scene where Princess Urulan, she's recording in her diaries, and she talks about the family of Atreides, right? This noble family, and the world that they had in Caladan, their original home planet, right? And she was like, oh, they had these beautiful waterfalls and these beautiful palaces, and they were awash in all this beauty, but they had to contend with the sad reality that often all people do, is that every time you get pleasure and peace, you also become lazy. And you become soft. And I think what happened with Israel is they became so right-wing, they became so incestuous in these intellectual systems, right? And even that community where they weren't pushed, where they're like, oh, we're not challenged anymore. And they kind of ossified. And I don't think they were ready for this moment, Matt, with TikTok, with Instagram, with Palestinian accounts, with the youth who literally called them all their bullshit. And so what they used to do is they used to take out AIPAC talking points from the Second Intifada, literally just blow dust off them, and like say, oh, we can appear on MSNBC. And I think the past 10 years, especially with what's happening in Gaza, I would say I would track it, Matt, to 2008, 2009 Operation Cast Lead.
100%.
That to me is the turning point. The past 15, 16 years. Each time they do something in Gaza, it's not the first time, folks. You see a crack. And more people, and even Jews now, I always say this, for the pro-Palestinian movement, if you can call it that, they got to tip their hat to Jews. A lot of Jews who came around and they're like, yeah, not in my name. Yeah. And Jews coming out, with Palestinians or people of color, it really throws off that argument, right? That all these people are anti-Semitic. And I think they got it's like Ronda Rousey. She walks in confident, and she thinks she can just like box with Amanda Nunes. Yeah. And Nunes goes, nope, I've been preparing for this first round. Pow. Yeah. And they're just stumbling around. And you see Elon Levy stumbling and Fleur Hassan Nahum. And for those who saw that clip, which went viral, Fleur Hassan Nahum is the deputy mayor of Jerusalem. Yes. She is the polished, civilized, feminine, with the nice accent, doesn't raise her voice, sane version that they sent out. Yes. And you saw her say, she was on with me, and I said this on Piers Morgan, I'll say it on your show. I said this to her face. Yeah. Piers, sometimes when you bring me on, I realize my job is just to stay quiet, because these Israeli representatives don't realize how genocidal and insane they sound to a global audience. So I win by staying quiet and letting them just speak and letting people hear them. And they do more damage to their cause than I could ever do. I think I said that almost verbatim on camera for the first time ever. And she proved me right.
Yes, 100%. And I have a clip of that that I want to play. And, I'm going to be skipping around because it is a long clip. But to set it up, Pierce is asking the deputy mayor of Jerusalem a question that he has, asked before. And this is one of the clips we played on an earlier episode where he's asking another person in the office of the prime minister's PR department, if you know how many Hamas, quote unquote, have been killed, how come you have that number, but you say you don't know how many civilians have been killed? And this is a question that he once again puts to someone who is supposed to be doing PR for them, and they still can't answer this fucking question. It blows his mind. He's like even more mad about it than he was last time, because he's like, come on, guys, I gave you time. And so I have a clip of that right here.
We have, I would say, potentially around 20,000, because that's what the UN
have
said,
no idea.
22,000.
You have no idea.
Let's not start with this line of questioning.
Actually, I'm going to start with this line of questioning.
I don't think Churchill knew in the middle of the Second World War how many Germans he'd killed. And so this is a farcical question. What I can tell you is
you just gave me a number, but you've no idea why you've got that number.
That's what the UN says. The UN says, according to the so-called Gaza Health Ministry, let's take their number, the mistaken, corrected number of the Gaza so-called Health Ministry, all terrorists underground, hiding like cowards. But let's say now they're saying 22,000. We know we've killed 14,000 terrorists.
No, you don't.
Now you tell me. Don't. Yes, we do.
No, you
yes,
don't.
we do. So you tell me.
No, I'm sorry. I'm not having that. I pressed the Israeli.
We know how many brigades. Hang on. We know how many brigades we've gotten rid of. We know how many brigades
I'm going to respond to you. I did put this.
We know how many brigades.
I put this to an Israeli government spokesman. I asked him, how many Hamas have you killed? And he gave me this figure. And I said, how many civilians have you killed? And he had no idea. I said, well, then how can you be so precise about how many terrorists you've killed? You can't. If you've got no idea how many civilians you've killed, why should I believe a word about the numbers of Hamas? So just to be clear, you know exactly how many terrorists you've killed, but you have no idea how many civilians.
We estimate, absolutely, we estimate that there's about 14,000 terrorists, which we've gotten rid of. We know how many are left. There's 4 brigades, and that's why we're in Rafah.
And how many civilians have you killed?
The UN, again, Piers, in the middle of the Second World War, I don't think you could have pushed Churchill.
You're doing it as well.
Ask him,
sorry, Fleur.
That was pure. That was pure. I can tell you that was very pure of him. I think he, as you 100%. Were mentioning, I think there comes a point where even a Piers Morgan, who's not a stupid man, is like, you are trying to gaslight me on my show, and I'm done.
Yes. That's that wow was this, like, he can't believe that people at this point, that Israeli PR people are still not going to give it to him straight. The thing is he doesn't care if it's a lie. Just make something up. Like his whole thing has been from the beginning, like, I'm going to play devil's advocate and then repeating Hasbara lies to whatever pro-Palestinian guest he has. In this case, he is just like, I don't even have a good lie to tell people when I'm arguing in bad faith with a like, I want to argue with Waj about why he's bad, and you're not going to give me any ammunition for it. So it's almost
you're going
like,
to lie to my face, and you're going to lie to everyone, and I've given you another chance, and you go back and you compare it to World War II, the most devastating war where so many people died, Germans apparently, because Palestinians. I said that in the next clip. I said you've compared Palestinians to basically Nazis.
Right.
And if you could see my face, and this is sometimes people, I've gotten this question a lot actually in the last 2 days since that clip came out. How could you be so calm? Good for you, Waj. Compliment. Like I would, and I tell people, look, this ain't my first rodeo.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, being of this brown skin and being Muslim and being outspoken after 9/11, you, me, Francesca, our inbox is a cesspool of the worst of humanity. That doesn't mean you have to accept it, but you have to develop tough skin. But
of course,
it's also a choice. There's a disposition. I don't get that angry. That just my disposition. But also, you can choose to be Daffy Duck or Bugs Bunny. And I can tell you, Matt, when you're brown skinned or Muslim, or if you're a Jew who advocates for Palestinians, they expect you to be angry and crazy and rabid. And that show wants you to be the Jerry Springer. I go the opposite route. I know I'm not going to speak that much. I know the crazy Israeli person is going to speak over me. They always do.
Yeah.
But if I could smile and keep my calm and keep my cool, that's already a win. And sometimes when your opponent is dragging themselves and literally tying the noose around your neck, this is for anyone who debates or wants to debate, you let them, folks. You don't have to interject. If they're digging their own grave, let them. And you could see my face. I was smiling. I would have eaten some popcorn. There is a period where she says so many egregiously horrible things. I think involuntarily, I do like this. I like
your eyes start twitching out. You have a mini stroke.
You'll see me just going like, wow, with a smile. And I wasn't even realizing I was doing it. I think that was my like visceral response.
Yeah, and I have some more of some more of that clip I want to play of you.
Absolutely.
No idea how many civilians. I mean, this is my problem with when I get into numbers with the Israeli side, is that they seem to be utterly emphatic in their knowledge of how many terrorists they're killing, but no idea how many civilians, and almost don't care. It's the fog of war. Churchill didn't count. Wajahat.
It's not that they almost don't care, Piers. It's that they don't care. And we know that the number is probably higher than 36,000 people killed. You and I have eyes. The world has eyes. We have seen Rafah get bombed. We have seen the charred bodies. We have seen Israel bomb churches, mosques, refugee camps. We have seen Israel kill the staff of World Central Kitchen and then say, oops, we have seen Israel occupy Palestinians in the West Bank. But to you, every Palestinian is a terrorist. You don't care about the women. You don't care about the children. You don't care about the majority of people that have been killed are civilians. To you, it's all terrorists.
Let him finish his point.
First of all,
well, he listened to you, so let him speak.
So what I say is she represents the general psychopathy of the Israeli government, where they come on television and they think the rest of the world actually is like them, that they don't see Palestinians as humans, and they say these talking points. And Piers, sometimes when you invite me to debate, I sit here and go, I don't have to say a word, because they're undermining themselves and their own cause in front of the global stage right now.
I think that is just such a great point. This idea of they have gotten so confident that they just don't believe we have eyes, where they just think that like they can tell us not to believe our own eyes, and we'll go, I don't know, I guess so. I mean, maybe I'm not smart enough to look at things and judge for myself. And it is amazing. I think it's a great tactic, a great anti-Hasbara tactic, to just let the PR people of Zionism just dig their own metaphorical grave. Just let them speak, because they get into this like sociopathic type thinking really fast, where all of a sudden like there's just a level of uncaring that it's like completely mask off, where
that's
children,
exactly it. Very
dead
quickly,
children
man.
are involved. Yeah,
very quickly it's masked off, and I think you get to that point within like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And they really all these spokespeople that have come on Pierre's show, people always say, well, Pierre, how come you're bringing on the most crazy Israeli, spokespeople?
Right.
I'm like, this is who they are.
Right.
They have shown you.
Yes.
The masks are off, the hoods are off. They don't care. They don't care. Because we've come to a point now where if this was November, Matt, I would say, okay, Israel, I get it. It has to strike back. This is 8 months on.
Right.
1.5 million people are displaced. We saw with our own eyes that these poor Palestinians who were displaced in Gaza, that's why they went to the south, there's nowhere to go in the north, and thought they were safe. Israel, IDF admits they dropped a bomb.
Yeah.
They killed middle-level Hamas agents who probably just got replaced the next day. And we saw charred bodies, and we saw the images of the kids sitting next to the charred bodies of their parents.
Yes.
And you go in front of a global stage and say, oops. And the global stage now is saying, why? Like, how? How does this make you safer, right? And they think everyone just like them does not see Palestinians as humans.
Right.
And you're seeing a global movement say enough. And what we've seen in our lifetime is Europe. Even Europe's moving away from America. Like Europe, remember 2 weeks ago was Norway, Spain, and Ireland very deliberately at the same time said we recognize the Palestinian state.
That's right.
And you're seeing Belgium move away. You're seeing France be more critical. You're seeing Germany even. You see Maldives, even though I don't agree with it. Maldives, like, you got an Israeli passport, we can't enjoy our beaches. And going back to our central point, because I'm not a psychopath, because I'm not genocidal, because I don't want to see anyone killed over land, because I'm not insane. How does this, if you can't bring yourself to care about Palestinians, Arabs, Muslims, how does this help Israeli Jews?
Right. Yeah. It's really based on a belief in the idea of statism, an antiquated belief about the power of a state and the power of nationalism, and whatever good can come from nationalism is somehow the most safe a people can be. Is this idea of self-determination being tied to this 19th century colonial thinking about nation states as the only way to ensure the safety of a people. And it's just like, it's weird that there's not anyone who has stepped back for a second and gone like, well, what are we tying this belief to? Like, what is it about nations that we find to be inherently indestructible? That it's completely ahistorical. Yeah. Nations do come and go, and borders change, and like the idea that like somehow a Jewish nation, specifically, one in which there is a legal apartheid,
ethno-nationalist state.
What's that? Yeah, an ethno-nationalist state. Yeah, will be the only thing that can protect the Jewish people. I mean, it's just like, bro, like, if there's one thing I learned growing up from reading about the history of the Holocaust, is that trying to do ethno-nationalism and an ethno-nationalist state is bad for a multitude of reasons, genocide being one of them, and also world reaction on the other. Like, so it's just like, you are watching people who are so bought into this idea of Jewish safety being tied to this Jewish state, specifically in its current form of government, that they are not willing to even like take a step back and look at how their own thinking is just so old, antiquated, imperialistic, colonialist, like all the words
It's self-destructive, because I'm going to make an assumption and put you on the record, and I'm going to assume, Matt, that you are not a self-loathing, self-destructive Jew who wants to bring about a genocide of your own people, vis-a-vis your criticism of Israel and Zionism.
That would be a safe assumption. It would be a safe assumption usually, but in this case, bro, I'm just kidding. Yes, obviously. Yeah, of course.
So you critique to make better, right? And you said something which a tweet of yours went viral, was on point. It was a tweet only you or a Jewish critic of Israel could do. I could never do.
Yeah.
Where Israel's current actions, you're like, it's making Hamas look good. Like people are like, let me take a second look at Hamas for a second.
And
this is not, and I knew that you weren't justifying Hamas's action, but you're like, man, this whole resistance, if my people were being killed and Hamas says it's a resistance, I mean, Israel's what I took from it is Israel's actions are so inexcusable, so terrible right now, so genocidal, that it's even like bolstering Hamas.
Yes, what I said specifically was that Israel has spent the last 8 months doing everything they can possible to make the answer to do you condemn Hamas go from yes to I don't know, man, I kind of get it. And like the
dark
idea,
humor for dark times.
Yes, the idea not being like I get this is a lot of people painted it as like, oh, so you get it when they killed civilians at Nova Festival.
I knew you were saying that.
Well, right. I mean, this idea that people were of course I knew we're going to take it in bad faith. But no, I think the point very much stands, which is just like I have not seen a more concerted attempt up on the Israeli government. They're so inept at Hasbara, which is explaining in Hebrew their actions, that all I can guess, at this point, it's just like when people initially were like, do you condemn Hamas? People, of course, were like, yeah, because they were talking about the specific actions of October 7th. And now it's come to the point where people, no matter how much you were told that it's anti-Semitic to talk about context when it comes to Israel, Palestine, and even the creation of Hamas, people are starting to look at that context and they're going more and more like, it is hard for me to continue saying all armed resistance is bad because, at some point you paint yourself as so obviously the oppressor that I can't help but put myself in the shoes of one of these kids who watched their parents burn alive, or one of these parents who was holding the headless body of their dead baby child. Like you make it impossible for people not to look at any resistance organization that exists that's armed resistance and go like, yeah, I kind of get it. I guess if it were me, I think I might join it, especially people who are puffing their chest online, who, behind anonymous accounts where they're just like, I'd be in Hamas day one. And it's just like, okay, bro. But,
leave
like
the cul-de-sac first, bro. Leave the cul-de-sac.
Yeah. But you see people, more and more, kind of doing the thing that people were accused of doing at the beginning, right after October 7th, which was, people were accused of celebrating Hamas when what was actually happening on the ground was pro-Palestinian activists were immediately, as soon as the 7th happened, immediately mobilized because they knew what was coming next. So we all knew that the reaction to this attack was going to be massive, just based on numbers alone. Because we were like, they have a rule about asymmetry in terms of their warfare. For every one Israeli you kill, they could either kill 20 or 100. Sometimes 1,000.
That's what happens in Gaza. That's what happens in Gaza.
All the time happens in Gaza, and so we all knew that this was going to be bad. And we knew that this was going to be a lot of, post 9/11 type thinking. This kind of like, just everyone shut your eyes and shut your ears, dive into this war. We're doing it. And there's nothing you can do about it. And, we all, especially
I tried to warn. I tried to warn because we protested the war on terror. We're at UC Berkeley. We led the first protest, and we were right about everything, and we were demonized. People forget, that we had no way to fight back at that time. We were called anti-American, especially when we were Muslim or brown. You were called terrorist. But everything that we warned about, we were right. Yes. And we said there will be blowback, there will be escalation. Yes. And what counterterrorism and NatSec experts have been saying since November, warning Israel, is that you will do the best recruitment for terrorists by engaging in this asymmetrical warfare. You are helping them with your propaganda. Like you said, these dead kids who feel like they're stuck in a prison or a concentration camp. Yeah. And we also want to tell people that Palestinians have overwhelmingly done peaceful resistance. But even like black folks in America, we take a knee, we get shot. We do peaceful resistance, we get shot. We march, we get shot. Yes. So you're just telling us to die. Well, what happens if some people say, if the only option is death, no matter what I do, then some people will say, I'm going to take out a few of you. Yeah. And it's not sitting there saying, yes, rah, 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 terrorism. Of course not. It's counterterrorism experts saying, this is what has always happened. Yes. So this pattern will happen. Do you want Israel to be safe? End the occupation. Stop indiscriminately killing civilians. And Israel says, nope, we're going to go, we're going to kill until 2025 because we're hoping that Trump wins. And if Trump wins, we know we're going to get carte blanche, which is why Netanyahu says we're going to go until the end of the year, because that's their big gamble. Trump 100%, 100%. And it's like you see it, and not to get too much into the electoral politics thing, but it just, nothing pisses me off more than watching Biden and Democrats think that they can work with these far right fucking Israelis, that the Israelis will do anything in their power to make it so that Trump is president, because they know that, like, when it comes to Israel and Trump, they have their best shot at like completing any kind of ethnic cleansing or any kind of war. So like, if I'm a ghoulish fucking Dem strategist, I'm early on going, hey, just so you know, it's not going to be a popular position to to be pro-genocide. And also, all the genocideers, they are actively pulling for you to fail. So maybe let's rethink. So maybe we should have a bipartisan congressional letter inviting Netanyahu, one of the most hated politicians in the world, with the ICC just wants to issue warrants as a war criminal, to address U.S. Congress.
Yes, exactly.
Let's do that.
Yeah. Yes, you would think, but no. But yeah, just in terms of the Hasbara that we've seen, and we talked about kind of the way in which it used to be good and used to be shiny. I want to play something that I got a few weeks back, and I've been waiting to play this on the show and just trying to find a moment. And this is just something that, if in terms of looking at Israeli Hasbara and going, what is going on in their PR department that they think that this looks cool? I just want to play. You got to see it. And let me find it real quick. Here we go.
We're operating this armored vehicle.
So I got to start here. The very beginning. Dog parents is how this starts. And I just need you to hear that so you understand.
Dog parents. We're operating this armored vehicle so that you could take your dog on a peaceful walk at the park.
Jews, Muslims, Christians, and people of all other religions. We're making sure our streets are safe so that you can be free to practice your religion without fear.
Parents, we're operating this aerial defense system so that you can send your children to school safely.
Hey kids, we're flying this UAV.
I'm sorry. What? Just the drone operator is like, no. You have to blur out my face.
I think it's a little too much, bro. Hey, a little too much. Can't show my face.
The good guys.
Kids, we're flying this UAV so you can fly your kites without a worry.
Surfers, we are here operating on this Shaldar PTO to keep the Israeli shoreline safe.
And for the people that prefer to stay in rather than going out, we are protecting Israel from cyber threats, so you can peacefully watch TV from your home.
So that when they try to destroy us?
So when terrorists fire rockets at civilians?
So when Hezbollah launches missiles towards Israel?
So that when terrorists attack? So when Hamas tries to infiltrate our shores?
We are here to defend.
Wow.
I mean,
I did not see that. That if you told me that was an outtake from Paul Verhoeven's Starship Troopers, I would believe you.
I know. There's so much going on in that.
Wow.
Opening with dog parents for me is great because it's just like it's just in case you were wondering, the people that this is for is not other Israelis. It's all in English. So if for any moment you thought this is like some sort of internal propaganda, no, not at all. They're talking to the American Jewish community, but the American just people as a whole. And they're starting with dog parents, and they're also talking about people who just want to stay inside and watch TV, where it's just like, hey, fatties, I know you like staying at home and you watching your House of Cards and your Game of Thrones and whatnot. But do you know that there's sometimes terrorists doing things? Well, don't worry. We're killing their whole family. So you can sit there and continue watching Bridgerton from Shondaland.
It's
just like
it literally encapsulates what we were talking about. Is in the past 20 years, Israeli society has gone so far right, so extreme, has gone so insular, has become so incestuous that they think honestly, I think I gave a great analogy to Starship Troopers.
Yeah, perfect.
That's like a fascist propaganda piece.
Yes.
And they're like, oh, Americans will support this war.
Yeah. I mean, it's just crazy to me too, because any American, as an American who's watching this, and I can easily turn off my, critical brain and just watch something for what it is. I do it all the time. If I have to watch a Jared Leto movie, I just go, listen, I know this guy's probably a bad dude in real life. I don't trust him at all. I think he's in a sex cult, but I gotta watch House of Gucci.
Morbin time. It's Morbin time. You gotta
exactly.
Morbin with Morbius.
I gotta morb with Morbius right now, so I'm gonna let that shit go. So I can turn off that part of the brain, and just watching that, I'm like, what do you expect from Americans to get out of that? What segment of the population is the kids when they're like, don't worry, kids, we're operating this drone vehicle so you can fly kites. They're not even trying. They're just like, I don't know, whatever kids do, fly kites, play Minecraft, hit the wheel with the stick. I don't know what kids are doing these days. The point is we got to kill some terrorists. It's wild.
Also, and they tried their best for diversity. They really tried.
Yes, they did.
All of them are in uniform. All of them are operating some weapon of destruction that will kill people. And the juxtaposition to the smiley face to weapons of death and destruction that somehow this will motivate people. And like if you're there, you're like, this seems like a really effed up society. Like, why is this guy crawling with a machine gun talking to me about Muslims, Jews, and Christians living in harmony? That's not normal.
Yeah, and it's just like it's so clearly like, to me anyways, I look at this and it goes like this is the messaging only works for a Western chauvinist. Like if you are someone who is just like West is best, we need to like, tame the savage. That's who it's for. The problem is that they're trying to do both things where they're also trying to be libs. So they're like, hey, dog parents. Hey, are you an autistic with ADHD? Well, support this group because we're going to kill all these terrorists. It's just like,
hey, queer vegan who watches Red Dawn as porn.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man, we're out here, fucking making sure that you can get all the gluten-free options that you want. And the only way to do that is if I kill this whole family. It's just like I'm not sure they know how they sound.
No, they don't. They really don't.
They can't. Wild. They can't.
It reminds me, again, we go back to this point. Gen Z, children, listen to me. I have gray hair.
Yes.
I assure you, Israeli Hasbara was better than this.
Yes.
Slick, polished, intellectual, oftentimes under the radar. you would have never had a New York Times story about a $2 million cyber campaign using ChatGPT to influence lawmakers. It would never have come out. It was stealthy, much more insidious, much more successful. This is Starship Troopers. They've gone to Starship Troopers level, and they think everyone is at that level of Starship Troopers, ethnic fascism. And you're seeing the world push back. You're seeing Jews push back. They're like, no, not in our name. This is not us.
Yes. And, you bring up this story, and, unfortunately, we don't have enough time to go through the entire thing. But there was recently a story that was both, I think, New York Times and Haaretz newspaper in Israel revealed that the Israeli government was behind a pro-Israel network that basically created hundreds of fake accounts, like sock puppet accounts, and amplified, created fake websites in order to influence American lawmakers, and specifically Democrats in Congress, also specifically Black Democrats in Congress. Because again, this idea of trying to separate kind of Black Democratic leadership, it's a way of trying to add some diversity to your ethno-nationalist idea. We can't be ethno-nationalists. We have Richie Torres out here supporting us. He
this is the good Black.
Yeah, he's a good Black, and he represents all Blacks. At least he should, and the ones who he doesn't represent, we will say racist shit to. And it just, yeah, exactly. And, you see the way in which it's been fairly successful in terms of trying to get all Democrats, to be in line with AIPAC. And the weird thing is when you talk about Hasbara being better, there was a time where in order to do this, you just clearly relied, solely on AIPAC, the threats of AIPAC to, hey, you either support Israel in full, or we will fund your opponent. But this idea of creating a bunch of fake accounts that are just so clearly, obviously fake, in order to bully people who are already sucking on the AIPAC teat. It's just, you look at it and you go you're just leaving yourself open to this criticism, because you're making it so obvious what you're doing.
You know why? I think I was talking to a few friends about this. I think they're sandbagging, and the reason why they're sandbagging is they do not expect a multiracial, multicultural coalition, including Jews, to push back. And it's almost like, when you've been the bully, how dare you push back? Don't you know who I am? Get back in your place. And young people are like, no. And they're like, we're going to ban you. We're going to make sure you don't get hired by law firms. And young people are like, I don't care. You can't say the G word. Young people are like, we'll say the G word. This young generation gives 0 Fs. And I think it's because they're seeing it. They're seeing it, and they have the way to fight back and talk back. And maybe, Matt, if you and I 20 years ago had these forums, we could have exposed Hasbara. But with that being said, I do think it is also shows an inner weakness in Israel where this is not sustainable, and also shows you that oftentimes occupations are not sustainable. And I think one of these things, last thing I'll say, I know we're running out of time, but Netanyahu needs to stay in power to save himself. But much like 9/11, maybe it'll take a couple of years. There will be an investigation as to how October 7th could have happened. With all that money, with literally, so much funding, so many weapons, obsession with security. And it shows you it's not secure. No matter what you do, military solutions will not work. And so just maybe, I'm throwing it out there, my final thought.
Sure.
If military solutions have not worked, Matt, maybe in the interest of Israeli security, if I can't convince you to care about these Palestinians and Arabs and Muslims and Palestinian Christians, maybe it's in Israel's security to end the occupation.
I don't know, man. I was thinking that's a good idea, but I have another suggestion. What about an app that you can give to people to help explain Israel's actions, so that the conversation isn't taken up with all these like Muslims and bad Jews. And I'd let you know that there was an app, and I have a commercial for that app about, I think this came out 6 years ago, that I just feel like people need to see, because I think it's a great technological product that will help the Jewish state. Here it is.
You're a smart guy.
What the hell?
She said, you're a smart guy.
Okay.
You're a very responsible toothbrusher. And you remember never to swim right after eating.
And always
make it a priority to dig deep into important matters.
Israel, for example, a country that falls into false and biased coverage online and in the media.
Very good transition.
I had myself on mute, so I don't think you saw me laugh. I rarely laugh out loud, but this is the first time I see this. I actually laughed out loud with the transition to Israel. Wow.
Yeah, beautiful transition. You know, just in case you were wondering what this was about, with the two hot Israeli girls coming up to a loser American who's on his computer all day, searching if Tupac is still alive.
And
for those of you listening,
online. Fail online exclusive.
Yeah, wow. He's on Fail Online. He's reading about all this like just anti-Israel, anti-Semitic, frankly, propaganda, and he's going to help these two hotties.
You know the truth about Israel.
I know the truth about Israel.
It makes you angry and helpless.
And you decide, starting today, you are going to tell the whole world the real truth about Israel.
I want to tell the world the truth!
That's a bit too much.
Want to protect Israel with these 8 simple steps?
Here's what you could do.
Invent a rare disease to get time off work.
It's pus everywhere.
Book a flight.
Hello, airport?
Fly for 11 hours in economy.
Taxi!
Arrive in Israel. Take 3 buses until you reach the Syrian border. Join Israeli humanitarian aid and save the lives of wounded Syrian citizens. Celebrate lives saved in the world's most vibrant Pride Parade in Tel Aviv. Enjoy a plate of the best hummus with people of all religions.
So are you guys in a band or something?
Upload your travel photos to Facebook and Instagram and share the truth about Israel. And finally, return back home, just to discover that the lies about Israel are still spreading. Your job is no longer relevant. And even that your good intentions have been used against you.
Or you can pick the easy way.
Want to defend Israel? Log on to 4IL, download the app, and share the truth.
What now?
Now
we boogie.
Oh.
Producer Adam had it right in the chat. He says this could be a funny or die video.
Yes, this is a funny or die ass video. This is, listen, there was a time in which Israeli propaganda was good. This happened a few years ago, and it was at a time when they were just starting to lose that edge in their forays into comedy. And man, the fall off has been brutal.
I think that's one of the tragedies, because Jews are a funny people. They've gone through a lot, and American comedy is indebted to Jews. And if I was a Jew, I would be mostly offended by how unfunny and uncreative that was. That's a shanda.
Yes, that's exactly what I say all the time. It's like the one universal truth about Jews has always been, we're pretty good at making jokes. But then you watch the corrosive effect of nationalism upon us as a people, and you just go like, you've stolen everything from me, dog. You've stolen everything. But hey, go download that app. It probably doesn't exist anymore. But man, good stuff. You know what I like about it the most? Those girls were hot. And sometimes that's all it takes in order to get a young Jewish gentlemen like myself to be like, I want to support the hot ladies. Not now though. I have a wife. Watch.
But back then you would boogie down with two.
I would boogie
Israeli
down.
hotties.
If it meant I could hang out with some Israeli hotties, I would boogie down. I would, put on whatever that shit. He put on blackface and was saving Syrian children in that. I'm not exactly sure what was happening in most of that video. But hey, the ladies were hot, and sometimes that's all you need in order to look the other way. Waj, God bless you for coming on this podcast.
Oh, that was great, man. I really enjoyed that. That was therapeutic, hopefully informative for the audience. I don't spend as much time on the Hasbara as you do. You are much more of a masochist. So I did not see. This is full disclosure. Matt did not tell me he was going to show me those videos. My reactions were sincere and pure and genuine.
Yes,
but I will say, this before I go. It's one of those situations where I want to reiterate. Look, I live in America. I've chosen to live in America. We've got kids in America. America is flawed, but it is a multiracial, multicultural coalition. It's the only way we're going to survive. The biggest threat to America is white Christian nationalism and white supremacy. They're coming
100%.
after all of us.
100%.
So you can simultaneously critique, but you have to look at the big picture. The threat is not an undocumented immigrant. The threat is not me or Matt. The threat is not a college protester, no matter what they say. That's the threat. And at the same time, you can simultaneously hold multiple truths. You can be critical of Israel, and you should be, without hating Jews. In fact, I hope I've made the case that I want to protect Jews and Arabs and Christians and Palestinians and Muslims. And right now we're at the point, 8 months in, where as Americans, we have to ask ourselves, why is our government and our taxpayer money funding and supporting a genocide that will destroy lives and not make anyone safer? And I think enough has been shown now where you can't be on the fence on this. I'm sorry, but I don't think you can. And, sometimes a big brother, like United States or the superpower, sometimes you take things away from a drunk driver if you want to help them.
Yeah, 100%. But where can people find you? Let's plug some of your work.
Oh, so thank you for listening to the chaos in the back. My kids have come out, so there's like 500 kids there in the background. It's usually like this all the time, but it's great. They're sweet kids. I'm co-hosting the podcast Democracy-ish with Danielle Moody. You should have her on. She's fantastic.
Cool. Will do.
And she's gone to Palestine and Israel, and she's very vocal for Palestinian rights as a Black woman. So if you want that perspective from those communities, and we just started a podcast, A Muslim and a Jew Walk Into a Podcast for Mary Trump Media. And I wrote this book that they told me to shamelessly promote. Go back to where you came from. And you can troll me on X, and I just joined the TikToks at TikTok. At TikTok Wajahat Ali. So
I was gonna say you should be at TikTok Waj.
Yeah, I'm gonna change it to at TikTok Waj. I think some inferior Waj took it, but for right now I'm at TikTok Wajahat Ali.
Thank you so much for coming on, and thank everyone out here for listening and joining the Patreon. Patreon.com/badhasbara. And email us badhasbara@gmail.com. And all right, everyone, thanks so much for listening. Until next time, from the river to the sea, that app commercial made me horny. Sorry.
Jumping jacks was us. Push-ups was us. Krav Maga us. All karate us. Take